What's up, everyone? We got another great episode coming up for you. The episode is episode 7, and we're in season 2 of Off the Cuff. We will be going to introduce to you an author and advocate for diversity and inclusion named Bodine Sanders, who wrote a book called Race Against Race, My Journey of Diversity and Inclusion Through Sports. But right now, I'd like to take this time to mention a very notable death.
Oh boy.
Bro, I know you don't like this, bro, but this weekend, it just happened yesterday. And boxing legend Marvin Hagler, the undisputed middleweight champion from 1980 to 1987, died yesterday, March 13th, at age 66, his wife said. And he died unexpectedly, so I don't have a cause. Rest in peace, champ, because he was something, man. And even if you don't know sports, it was like he was almost like the Muhammad Ali of the middleweight division. So, yeah, rest in peace to him, man. That's a sad one. He was only 66, too. That's
66.
Yeah. So I don't know what killed him, but I'm assuming probably something with a heart. I'm gonna go ahead and switch it to a much lighter note. I'm happy to announce that our off-the-cuff custom leather and suede shoes from Italy will now be on sale permanently on www.aliveshoes.com, thanks to a very special person. So go to aliveshoes.com and search Off the Cuff, DA, not THE. So Off the Cuff, and you shall see our beauties right there. Get those off the cuffs, as I call them. So, and also remember, we got that merch store online as well.
Merchandising.
We got over like 300 items or some shit like that. I mean, we got a lot of items now. Go to www.squadlocker.com and search for ODC Pod Shop. That's POD Shop. All ODC Pod Shop. And buy yourself or someone else some nice hoodies or nice apparel, and rep us at the same time. You know what I'm saying? Just yesterday, I was wearing my off-the-cuff hat, my cap, with my off-the-cuff mask. And my daughter and I were in a shoe store, and she was wearing her off-the-cuff hoodie. And she loves hoodies. And this real cool dude that works there, young guy, at the end, after he helped me out with my shoes and everything, he says, "I take it that's your podcast because I see it everywhere." And I said, "Man, this is like a mini celebrity moment," right? In my head, I was like, but it wasn't. It wasn't. It was just in my head. And I said, "Yeah, we indulged in a little convo about it." And he was like, "Yeah." I said, "You should check it out." He said, "Yeah, I will." So hey, we may have a new listener. That's good enough for me right there.
Yeah, boy.
Okay, so now I'm gonna go ahead and
there, bro.
Yeah, well, hey, it's both of us. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, congratulations to both of us, right?
That's right. So now we're gonna give a warm and great off-the-cuff welcome to former Villanova football player turned author and advocate for diversity and inclusion, Mr. Bodine Sanders. Yeah.
Well,
how you doing, Mr. Bo?
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Welcome.
And no, absolutely. And listen, take those mini celebrity moments whenever you can get them. It's a positive thing, right?
Yeah, that was pretty awesome. I mean, I never had anybody kind of say, even though he just saw the name and kind of thought to ask. So that was cool.
Yeah, I mean, he's paying attention. He had the wherewithal to recognize it. So that means you are accomplishing what you set out to do, right? You set out to create a podcast where people can educate themselves, entertain themselves, learn something, maybe even encourage people to do some things. So hats off to you, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank
you. We are trying. Yeah. So welcome to the show, though, man. It's really nice to have you here with us at ODC, and I'll get right into the questions because I got a couple.
On, bro.
Bruh.
Yes, sir.
So, Bodine,
yes, sir.
Can you kind of give us a summary about your book first, and maybe tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. So, as you wonderfully introduced in your intro, I am a former athlete. I consider myself a retired athlete. I'm still an athlete in terms of amateur sports. I play golf. I like tennis. But I retired as a football player. I was kind of forced into retirement because I didn't get drafted, right? So, but once you're an athlete, Jefe and Euclid, once you are an athlete, you're always an athlete. You just retire, right? If you started playing football at an early age or whatever sport, and then you didn't advance after high school or you didn't advance after college, okay, you retired. Now you're back into the amateur status. So I consider myself a retired football player. I'm an advocate for diversity and inclusion. I believe in diversity and inclusion because it is absolutely important for us socially as human beings and as Americans to have diversity in our life because, number one, it's a good thing, right?
Right.
And you learn, you enhance your human capabilities by learning from other folks, right? Everyone has their own culture. As individuals, we have our own personalities, right? So it's part of the social fabric of what being a human being is about. If you only hang with people that you like or you have something in common with all the way around, I'd like to think that would be a boring life at some point. It would get there, right?
Well, actually, it's.
But when you have diversity, you're constantly learning. You're constantly being introduced to things. It's just like you have your merchandise, right?
Right.
A lot of people like Nike. A lot of people like Reebok. A lot of people like New Balance or whatever fashion that's out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But most people who like fashion will have a diverse closet full of fashion, right? And your hope is that folks will like your logo, your fashion, and they'll add that to their closet full of fashion.
Amen to that shit.
And so it's really not that difficult, right? It's easy to break it down. So
that's right.
That's what I believe in, and that's my message, and that's the message I'm trying to get out there.
Okay. Awesome.
Wonderful.
Bro, you
go ahead, bro. Yeah, I know you have questions, and then I'm biting my tongue for the moment.
Ouch, that had to hurt.
All right. Well, in your book, and this is no pun intended, but you tackle the difficult and often uncomfortable issue of race, correct?
Absolutely.
And some of the race issues that continue to plague us or were plaguing us back in the day and still are now. What differences, though, and or similarities do you see in race relations today from how it was back in the 80s, say?
Well, yeah, and that's a great question. If you think about where we are right now, we have issues regarding race relations. We have a lack of communication. We have a lack of listening. And we have a lot of folks who like to get into their corner, right? Or on their sideline and stay on their sideline. And so, right. You know, I was born in 1965, the year of the Voting Rights Act. Okay. So if you think about that, we've had the voting rights protection for seriously 55 to 56 years, right? That's not that long ago. So right. When you think about where we are today and where we started, so to speak, in 1964 and 65, Civil Rights Act, Voting Rights Act, we're still working our way through all of the hurdles and barriers. So when you think about race relations, you think about a lot of folks are nervous, intimidated, afraid, cautious regarding having the race conversation, right? And for me, when I started this journey of writing my memoir, it was because anytime we have issues regarding race in this country, the media would say, we need to have the race conversation. And I would look at the TV, or I'd be in my car and I'd hear folks say that, and I'd find myself throwing something at the TV or yelling at the radio in the car saying, hold on. Athletes on a diverse team have had that conversation. Why could I say that with confidence? Because I knew it. I lived it. And so when you have athletes who are on a diverse team, Mother Nature makes it where you have that conversation, right? If you're together with your teammates for practice, for training table, meaning you eat together, right? You go to the library for study hall. You could possibly live in the same dorm, if not be roommates, right? You're traveling together during the season. Let's keep it simple. During the season, be it whatever sport it is, you're together sometimes more than you are with your girlfriend, your friends, your parents, your family. So if you're with someone who doesn't look like you, from a different socioeconomic background, religion, race, Mother Nature makes it where, and society makes it where you're going to have a conversation. It could be because of music. It could be because of food. It could be because of fashion. It could be because of
have things in common. Yeah.
And there you go. And then you begin to find out what you have in common when you start those conversations. And then you start to build a relationship. So athletes on a diverse team have those conversations if they're together for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, or 5 years. And I'm keeping it in the window of college sports, right? So that's what propelled me to write my memoir. There were other things that propelled me to write it, but that was one of the main focuses, my focus. But the person that gave me the encouragement to write my story is Howie Long. And if I'm sure you guys are familiar with Howie Long. He's on Fox Sports with Terry Bradshaw and Jimmy Johnson and Michael Strahan and that crew. Howie Long is a Villanova grad, former Villanova football player. And we were hanging out at a lacrosse tournament for his youngest son. And we were tailgating before the lacrosse tournament down at Townsend in Maryland, University of Townsend. Or is it University? I forget. And so, and we were hanging out.
I used to work in that area.
Did you? And so we were hanging out, and one of our alumni, who was an institution at Villanova, a guy who recruited Howie Long to play football at Villanova, tells Howie my story. And my story is I grew up in an all-Black environment, or a predominantly Black environment. And I start my college career at Cheyney University, which is the oldest HBCU in the country, founded in 1837. And then I get an opportunity, and Cheyney's a Division II school. I love Cheyney. Cheyney gave me my first opportunity to attend college and play football as a walk-on. And so I love Cheyney, but Villanova dropped their program after Howie Long got drafted to the Raiders. They dropped it for 3 years, and then they brought it back. And that gave me the opportunity to transfer in when they were restarting and re-kicking their program back up. And so I took that opportunity to do that. And what I didn't know was I was going from an HBCU to what we called back in the day a PWI, predominantly white institution. Nowadays, they say traditional white institution. And believe it or not, I didn't do my homework. I thought Villanova was a predominantly Black institution. Why did I think that? Because I attended what was called a Black Cultural Society party over an Easter break, and everybody was gone from the campus. So the only people I saw were at the party were Black. So I made the mistake.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I made the mistake.
Make that connection.
Mm-hmm. I made the mistake.
You were like, well, there's a lot of Black people here. There's all Black people.
Yeah.
It must be.
Yeah. It was a simple mistake. It was a naive mistake. But my sister, my second oldest sister, was at Bethune-Cookman College, which is now Bethune-Cookman University down in Daytona Beach. And during that summer of transferring, she looked at me and was like, dude, just because, and here's how she explained it to me. She said, just because Georgetown has all Black basketball players doesn't make Georgetown a Black school. And I didn't have a reply for that, right? And I just didn't know. She said, nope, Villanova's a Catholic private institution, and you don't know what you're talking about. And we fought literally. We argued for about a week based on what I knew, based on what she knew, and all my sisters. At that point, I had 6 sisters, and
wow,
unfortunately, 2 passed away, so I have 4 now. But all my sisters were smarter than me, obviously, right? And so that was part of how I got. That's the story how I got to Villanova. I had no idea what I was doing, but the thing was, I wasn't transferring to Villanova because of the school and the ratio of the school and the politics or the popularity of the school. I was transferring to Villanova because I wanted to play Division I football, and that's what mattered.
Wow, well, that's one hell of a story right there. So, bro, you got some questions?
I thought you had some more questions for him.
I'm gonna save it for after the break.
Okay. Okay. So, Bodine.
Yes, sir.
So it sounds like you wanted to go to an HBCU and ended up in a private, I believe, Catholic school, is it? Villanova is a Catholic school?
Yes, absolutely.
And do you feel that there is a difference in terms of your experiences today, looking back at having not gone to the HBCU, but rather to Villanova?
Well, remember, I was at Cheyney for 1 semester, right? So I had a little bit of experience, but I also had secondhand experience because my aunt, as we would say down south, she attended an HBCU, Atlanta Clark down in Georgia. A few of my sister's friends attended HBCUs. A few of my classmates in the neighborhood attended HBCUs. So I understood the HBCU experience from an athletic perspective, right? I understood that, in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and, that Black athletes who weren't recruited or allowed to be accepted into a traditional mainstream institution would attend HBCUs and carry on their career, right? So I understood that. So when I transferred to Villanova, yes, it's obvious. There was an immediate, when I got off the train, there was an immediate difference, right? I write about this in my book. When I got off the train, what I noticed about the university, standing on the platform of the train station, based on that experience I had that weekend that I went to visit, was totally different. Like, when I got off the train, there were cars in the parking lot that I had only seen on commercials, like Porsches and Mercedes and BMWs and Maseratis. They were very expensive Cadillacs, or just new cars, not hoopties, right? So from that experience,
I know about hoopties.
So from that experience, just walking off the train onto the platform, there was the beginning of, whoa, my sister might be right. And then as I walk through the parking lot, headed towards the football office to check in, the first person I meet is an Italian guy. And if you think about the 80s and the movie, right? Well, if you think about the 80s and the styles and the culture back then, it was big hair, right?
Yeah.
Everybody wore chains, some type of jewelry, right?
Right.
And you kind of think of the Rocky movie, right? The way folks from the Philadelphia area, the way some folks communicated. So I met an Italian guy who was driving a Porsche, and I went, whoa. And he offered me a ride. And he didn't have to, because the football office wasn't that far from the train stop. But he offered me a ride to the football office. And that was my first introduction to my new environment at Villanova. And then when I walked from the football office to the main campus to check in on campus, go to the registrar's office and all those things that I had to do, I didn't see one person that looked like me throughout the sea of students walking from one building to the next. And that's when I knew I didn't do my homework regarding what you should do when you decide to attend a school or transfer to a school. But again, my focus was I wanted to play football on that level, and those things weren't necessarily the most important thing to me. In other words, even though I didn't grow up in a diverse community, it wasn't the end all be all, because that wasn't my focus. So that was the first. But there are many experiences that I talk about in my book that I had to deal with. For example, I'll give you one real quick one. I don't know about you guys, but I grew up playing football. I started playing football in junior high school. They call it middle school now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So junior high, senior high, and then at Cheney for that one semester, that spring semester, all my coaches were black men. All my teammates were black men, young men, right?
Mm-hmm.
I get to Villanova, there's only one black coach and five black athletes trying out for the team to make the team because, again, they restarted the program. So you had to make the team first. You weren't just because you transferred in, you were automatically on the team. So
right.
that was my experience when I walked on campus. One black coach and five black players. Three of the black players, including me, so there was two other black players that were defensive backs. There were three black defensive backs, one black running back, and one black defensive lineman. That's what I saw. And
culture shock.
That was the new environment that I was in when I walked on campus. Amazing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. That's a big change.
So I had to make the adjustment, right? I had to make the adjustment because my defensive back coach at Villanova was a white guy. And I had been coached by a white guy in my entire career. So I had to make the adjustment. So somebody might say, well, why did you have to make the adjustment? Because he, as a coach, had already coached black athletes before. Right. So he didn't have to make the adjustment. I had to make the adjustment. And I was able to make the adjustment with the help of that coach, that position coach, but also with the help of my defensive back teammates, right?
Right.
They helped me adjust, not just my black defensive back teammate, Nate Booknight from Norristown, but Jay Curcio and John and Bob Rosado and, my other defensive back teammates. They helped me adjust because I told them, I'm like, listen, this dude is yelling in my face. He's screaming at the top of his lungs, this, that, and a third. And you guys might say, well, don't all coaches do that? Yes, they do. I even had black coaches that did the same. The difference was I never had a white coach do it.
Yeah.
So I had to adjust to that. And once I was able to adjust to that and give my defensive back coach the same respect that I gave my black coaches in my past, then I was able to allow him to coach me to be a better player. And that was part of the process. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, for sure.
It does. But it also leads me to another one. So,
well, hold that thought, bro.
Go ahead.
Yeah, because I'm going to go ahead and take a break, and we'll be right back with more from Bodine Sanders, and stay right there.
Have you ever wanted to make your own podcast? Anchor can help. It's free. The creation tools allow you to record and edit right off your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you. It can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from it too, with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need in a podcast in one place. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
And we're back. Like a rash you try to get rid of, but you can't. Damn, I actually wanted to say something nice, but I messed that up. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and go on with Mr. Bodine, former college football player and now author of Race Against Race. Go ahead, bro. You have the floor.
All right, so Bodine, with my last question and in your answer, I wanted to ask you how much of your learning curve, if you will, was due to your own expectations. And let me rephrase that. There was an astronaut, a Mexican astronaut, that he placed this very eloquently, but I can't remember the terms that he used. And basically, in the gist is, the I don't belong here syndrome because of your peers and how different from you, primarily because of their race. So did you ever feel like that at all? Like, I don't belong here because initially, right? Because of your peers?
That is a great question. As a human being, I would be lying to you if I said at times I didn't feel, not necessarily the direct question you're asking, if I didn't belong there, but what I did feel.
If you felt that you didn't belong there.
Yeah, I was too busy trying to prove I did belong there, if that makes sense. Because again, football was my focus.
Right.
So yes, I had feelings at times that I didn't fit in, but it never got to the point where I felt like I needed to leave. Why? Because again, I was too busy, too focused on surviving and trying to prove that I belong there as an athlete, stepping up from a Division II school to a Division I AA program, right?
Right.
So I might be unique in that. I don't think I am. But as I said earlier, because I was too busy, or I was focused on trying to prove that I belong there as an athlete, right? And that took away the feeling that you're asking, did I feel like I didn't belong or they didn't want me, in terms of being a student athlete? Because coaches, their job, remember, coaches are teachers, right?
Right.
They're basically teachers. And their job is to motivate you, educate you, and encourage you. And so my coach, my first position coach, did an excellent job of that. But on the flip side, I did have barriers and hurdles in terms of coaching. Once that position coach left, I got a new position coach. And I did not fit into his scheme of being a defensive back. So my playing time went downhill my junior year. And then my fifth year, I was basically switched from defensive back to wide receiver.
Right.
Now, some athletes might take that and go, I'm leaving. I'm going to transfer out to another program that values me. And I didn't do that for a number of reasons. I didn't do that because, number one, I was too close to graduating. But number two, I had gained more respect for what I was trying to accomplish, which was the ultimate goal of graduating college. And I knew I was lucky enough to get into Villanova. Why would I be dumb enough to transfer out when I was so close to graduating? And having the white paper with black ink on it that said Villanova University. Because I understood that having that title and having that diploma would allow me to accomplish things after football that a lot of folks may not be able to accomplish, right? You know, it's like if you graduate from an Ivy League school, you're going to get more opportunities, or you're going to get more opportunities to get looked at on a job opportunity than if you graduated from a junior college, right?
Right.
That's just the way life is, right? That's not putting down the junior college, but that's just the way life is.
Right.
So I knew graduating from having that diploma was going to allow me, after I graduated, to accomplish whatever I wanted to do. So it wasn't easy. When it comes to football, life was good in the beginning, and it didn't end the way I wanted it to.
Right.
But in the reverse, regarding the academics, life wasn't easy, but I bust my butt, and life was good in the end. So because of all those dynamics that college students and student athletes tend to go through, right? I walked away and graduated from Villanova with a positive outcome and a positive look. Hence, that's why I wrote the book. If I was carrying a chip on my shoulder and was mad at the university and mad at the environment, I couldn't have written this book. I'll take that back. I could have written a book that was a negative book. This book is not a negative book. This is not a grievance book. This book is a positive book, an inspirational book based on what people tell me, where someone can read it, regardless if they're Black or white, whether they're a Southern Baptist, like I grew up in a Southern Baptist church, or Catholic, or whatever religion, and they can read it and go, I learned something from this. And they can take what they learned and apply it to the next opportunity they have to build or begin to build a relationship with someone that doesn't look like them or from a different socioeconomic background.
Okay. So let me ask you this. So a young man that is a Black young man who would like to follow in your footsteps, what kind of advice would you give him?
Oh, man, you're full of great questions. Man,
Thank you.
We strive.
Hey, you know what? We all know being American is different, right?
Right.
Our country is an experiment, right?
And I'd like to think it's
Our
a successful one so far.
Our country is an experiment. We have lots of different people in it from lots of different religions. Everything's different, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And so for a young man of color who is pursuing his dreams or her dreams, a young woman of color pursuing her dream.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing I would say based on my experience is don't give up, right? Build your confidence up. And you hear the term work hard. It's true. You got to work hard. Meaning if you want to be, first of all, if you want to be a college basketball player as a female and you have talent to be a college basketball player, then you got to work at it. You got to practice, right?
Exactly.
You got to practice. Now, if you are a football, let's stick to basketball because it's a little bit easier. If you're a basketball player and you're 5'8" and you are 230 pounds, the chances are you're not going to be able to play D1 basketball. Why is that? Because how many times have you seen a 5'8", 230-pound guy play college basketball? Right?
Bro, you paid attention to this, bro?
What are you trying to say?
Now, that doesn't mean that doesn't mean that 5'8", 230-pound athlete can't play D3 basketball.
Okay.
But if his dream is to play D1 basketball, the chances aren't that good based on what we know and see on TV, right? D1 basketball is big time basketball, right? So maybe that athlete should sit down and have an honest conversation with himself and go, okay, am I quick enough? Am I fast enough? Can I jump high enough? What can I shoot the ball great enough to be on a D1 level? And if he is honest with himself, he'll come up with the answer. Right. If he has the body structure where he can lose weight, and then maybe that could happen, but I don't know that. I mean, those things, that's why they measure you, right? Mm-hmm. They take your height, they take your weight, they take your agility, the time, and all those things. Maybe that athlete should be thinking, just because I love basketball doesn't mean that's necessarily the sport for me. If I like football, maybe I can grow to love football because my skill set puts me in that position to play football. Like a 5'8", 230 guy could be an awesome D1 middle linebacker.
Right. Yep.
Right.
Like London Fletcher comes to mind.
There you go.
Yeah,
so
awesome.
you really have to be able to say, you have to be honest with yourself. So that's what I had to do. So I would tell the athlete, again, focus on what you want to do. Be realistic based on your skill set. I knew I had the talent and the body type and the mentality to be a strong safety, right? Mm-hmm. I knew I didn't have the hands to be a wide receiver, right?
Okay.
Got it. Yeah, I hear you.
Right?
Yeah,
so I had
does take some skill there, those hands.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So you tell that athlete, hey, be true to yourself, focus, work hard, practice. Nowadays, and it's always been that way since the 80s, you got to have your academics down, right?
Right.
Your academics is just as important as how fast you run the 40 and your agility skills, right? So back when I graduated high school, as I write in my book, athletes were being put in a position where they had to focus on their academics because the NCAA and the college education system was changing the rules where you couldn't just go to school and not go to class, like it probably was prior to the 80s, right? And then based on what school you went to, if that school valued education, they wouldn't let you get away with taking, like there was no basket weaving at Villanova or probably other private schools. Maybe some state schools back in the day, there was basket weaving. That's the term we used to use back in the day, meaning an easy class, right?
Oh, okay.
Right. So you have to prepare yourself. You have to have the fundamentals down. You got to be able to read, write, and do math.
Right.
Yeah. Right. And nowadays in college, they want you to be able to volunteer. They want to know what's your heart like. Right? Do you volunteer and do you give back? Do you participate in your community? So all those things nowadays is part of the soup that you have to master, so to speak, when a college is looking at you and what can you contribute to the university environment, right?
Right.
So it's not just you got to be a good athlete. It's got to be, okay, what can you contribute? Do you join organizations? Can you help organizations elevate themselves? Can you add to a conversation, right? So there's so much nowadays. So you have to be well-rounded. I guess that's the right way to say it.
Right.
You have to be well-rounded, but you also cannot give up on your dream if you're being realistic about your dream, right? If you're being realistic, yes. If you're being realistic, don't give up. Keep fighting for it. Keep working hard, because the harder you work, you will get a break because somebody will help you. right?
Yeah.
If you're doing the right thing, right,
Mm-hmm.
and you're working hard, someone will notice it. We can't do everything on our own. You need it. You need help. And I write about that in my book as well. I probably would have graduated Villanova. It would have been harder for me. It was hard, but it would have been harder for me if not for people extending a hand, helping me, guiding me, directing me, and encouraging me to do the things that I needed to do.
Right.
Good.
Well, on that note, if you don't have any more questions, bro, I'm going to go ahead and move on to something else. And
Well, I not so much a question. I just wanted to make a comment.
oh, sure.
Attesting basically to what Bodine was saying regarding, commitment and working hard and don't give up.
It's a great message, by the way.
Just about two weeks ago or so, I saw a report. I forgot what channel, what program it was. It was a notable news type of program, and they had a report on the first Mexican astronaut. Now, typically astronauts go by way of the military, either the Air Force, the Navy, the Marines. They're almost always pilots. But this individual, and I forgive me, I'm really bad with names. He tried. His dream since he was a kid was to be an astronaut. He did all the right things. He worked hard, helped his family, his immigrant family. He's American. They used to pick tomatoes, during the season. He went to school here in the United States, and he got himself his engineering degree. If I'm not mistaken, he went as far as a PhD and worked with, some major companies, developing things. But he did not go the route of the military. He applied for NASA to be an astronaut. I believe it was 27 times.
Damn! Wow.
He was denied 26 times.
What? What the fuck?
Oh, man.
But 8 of those times, before he got accepted, 8 of those times he was, in the top 10.
Wow.
Eventually, he made it.
Not a boy.
He made it. Story right there. I have a name here for you, bro. Maybe this is him. Jose M. Hernandez.
That's him. I think
Jose
that is him.
M. Hernandez. Okay.
Correcto!
Yeah.
Wow.
And that just attests to perseverance, right?
Oh, hell yeah.
Like Bodine was saying, you got to work hard. You can't give up on your dreams. If that's what you want, you got to keep going. He took a lot of rejections, but he made it in there. He went into space.
Can you feel it coming? The icy cold of space.
Looks like he actually has a couple of books too. He's Reaching for the Stars, which is and then it's Reaching for the Stars, the inspiring story of a migrant farm worker turned astronaut. Wow, what a title. But that's basically it. That's a dream right there.
Now get this.
Worked hard and
perhaps maybe you can see it there in your Google as you're looking it up. Previous to making it into NASA, I forgot which company he was there with. The mammograph. I think it was the mammograph machine. He had an integral role in the invention of the mammograph machine.
Wow, that's great.
So,
man.
Again, mostly most astronauts go in from the military, right? Because they have the experience of flying the planes that the Defense Department has available, and they always put in their applications into NASA. And, it could be test pilots, it could be trainers, it could be all kinds of stuff. But this guy never gave up. Never gonna give you up. And as Bodine is giving his advice to the young person that wants to follow in his footsteps, it just reminded me of this case with the astronaut there, this astronaut Jose. He never did give up.
Yeah, that's a great story.
He did go the full mile, and he lived his dream. Yeah, he lived his dream.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You know, never gave up. I mean, can you imagine? You applied for the same position, 20-something times.
Oh, hell no.
10 of those times, you or maybe 7 of those times. You
got to have some kind of determination there, some kind of will and determination. That's awesome, man.
Definitely. And then look at his beginnings,
especially where he came from.
Right, exactly. He used to come across the border to go and, pick tomatoes and, during the season. And he went through school. He educated himself. He did also have lots of help and encouragement from his father too. But
that helped.
It was his childhood dream,
support,
and he made it there. He stayed focused. He worked hard, never gave up, and there he is.
Yeah, as Bodine said, he gave all the credit to a lot of the people that helped you along, and I think that pretty that helps a lot.
Well, I have to make this comment as well. A lot of people they tend to always take their credit for their success. I did it all. But Obama, I think in his first term, he stated in one of his speeches there, you didn't get to wherever you got to by yourself.
Right.
Then he turned it around on himself and he said, I didn't get to where I got by myself. Somewhere along the line, it could be that kindergarten teacher, the 4th grade teacher, your science teacher, your social studies teacher, your that professor, or even that one girlfriend that just said, you can do it. Someone, somewhere helped you to get to where you are. And that's another point that Bo made. He had a lot of encouragement along the way. So to all of our young listeners, whoever you may be, hopefully be my knucklehead son, you don't get to anywhere just by yourself. Now you do have to do your part. You have to do your part, and you have to remain focused and do the right thing. And hopefully my son is listening. And Bodine, thank you for bringing up the educational part of the sports arena. Because that is something that a lot of youth today take for granted. They think that, just being able to run and, throw a ball or receive a ball or kick a ball, is enough to get through life. And that's not the case at all.
By the way, Bo, his son is a great soccer player. And he's 16 now, 17?
He's 16. He's going to be 17 in May. He's actually he's got this opportunity facilitated by his coach to try out for his coach's former college.
Wow!
Their soccer team. It's their traveling soccer team. It's some sort of special program that they extend to the high schoolers now, and hopefully he'll go far with that.
Yeah, he's got a lot of skill in that game, man.
He's got a lot of skill, but so he needs to sit down and focus a little bit more on his studies. He has to realize that today you can play, tomorrow any little thing can happen and you won't be able to play again.
Yeah. And that's why I love the message that Bo brought today. So thank you for that.
So Bo,
I'd like to play. Hey,
hold on, bro.
Oh, go ahead.
I got another question here for Bo. So, Bo.
Oh, you gotta be fucking kidding me!
Now that you are retired from football, but you're still an athlete, okay, but you're retired, and you were kind of forced into early retirement. What do you do for a living?
Well, I am an author. I made a decision that being an author was not going to be a part-time job.
Mm-hmm.
I made the calculated decision that if I was going to do this, I was going to do it. I was going to jump in the ocean, not just walk in and let the waves hit my ankles or my knees. Number one, I'm a swimmer. Growing up in Florida, I know how to swim. So I was going to jump in and swim. And so I made the decision while I was doing my due diligence and my research that I created a plan, right? I wrote out a plan, just like when you start a business, you have to create a business plan, right? And you have to, or if you're an athlete, and I'll use football as an example, you have a playbook. You got to study the plays that were created by the coaches, right? I created a plan for myself, and the goal was to follow the plan. So I made it where I worked while I was writing and preparing. So when my book debuted, I would be able to do this, not just write the book and then that's it, but write the book, promote the book, do interviews, and deliver a message, right? Regarding diversity and inclusion, because the subtitle of my book is My Journey of Diversity and Inclusion Through Sports. So the goal for me is to speak to student athletes, high school, college, maybe pro, if someone gives me that opportunity and like my message. I could also speak to corporate America because of my many years of corporate experience, you know? And so my goal is to deliver a message based on my experience of how I was able to grow up in my environment, in a predominantly Black environment, and then transfer to a different environment that I did not grow up in, how I was able to graduate with a positive outcome and tell the stories on how I was able to get to that point, right?
Right.
How I was able to walk away or graduate with a positive attitude, a positive demeanor, with confidence. And so it's all about delivering. I'm doing my part. My message isn't the silver bullet, right? There's lots of folks who've written books about diversity and inclusion or social justice or equity or equality regarding race relations. Everybody's trying to do their part, or at least those authors are. I'm just adding to the story. So having the ability to speak to folks, deliver my message on off the cuff, and have the off the cuff listeners hear that message. My hope and my goal is for someone to hear that message and go, okay, I can do a better job regarding diversity and inclusion or race relations, right? If you think about it, diversity and inclusion, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I mean, there are so many acronyms out there. The one that I like, the acronym that I like is JEDI, right?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, right? It's kind of a spinoff of the Star Wars, but it's catchy, right?
It's catchy, yeah.
And so all of those acronyms fall under the same, to me, falls under the same umbrella of race relations, right? So if people are doing their part, you guys are doing your part right now, right? Talking about this, delivering the message, then we can help move the football forward in a positive way, right?
Right.
The goal is to get a first down. You got 4 downs to get a first down. Well, sometimes you're going to get more than 10 yards to get that first down. You could do that through throwing the ball, or your running back can have a big wide open hole that the offensive line created, and boom, the running back sprints through it and gets 20 or 30 yards, right? Or the quarterback can throw a 50-yard pass. The ultimate goal for the offense is to score a touchdown and then to score as many touchdowns as possible, more so than the other offense. And then the defense has to do its job, preventing that other offense from scoring touchdowns, and then you win, right? So everybody has their own job responsibility to advance the football, score touchdowns, score more touchdowns, and then in the end, win the game when the clock strikes 0. So I'm just doing my part. So that's what I'm doing. My goal is to deliver the message, because the message needs to be heard. Sure, there are lots of people who are woke, right? There are lots of people out there who are allies, right, in the struggle for equal rights and diversity and advancing race relations in a positive way. But there's some people out there on the sidelines. They're afraid, or they don't know how to contribute, right? And they may be nervous because, I mean, let's face it. In our past, there have been allies, our white brothers and sisters, who have participated in the movement to advance better race relations. And some people may have made a mistake and put their foot in their mouth and were accused of being racist because they said something that may have been viewed as racist, but they themselves may not be racist. They just made a mistake. They said something wrong, or they said it in the wrong way, right? So there are some people out there who are on the sidelines who are afraid to get involved. Well, if you present more options for them to get involved, then they may come off the sideline. And then we're building a lot of allies, a lot of people who are moving and advancing the conversation, more or less moving the ball in a positive direction. So that's my goal, and that's what I'm doing. That's my focus. I got 2 more books that I have in mind to write after this one. And they're along the same lines of diversity and inclusion.
Okay.
The next book will be from a coach's perspective or coaching perspective. And then the third book will be from the media's perspective, right? And so that's going to take me at least another 2, 3, 4 years to get all 3 done. So the next 5 years, my goal is to write 2 more books. And then after that, I'll set goals for the next 5 years, God willing, and go from there.
Very good, very good. So I know that bro man over here, Big Jefe, is going to want to interrupt me again and say that we're running out of time. But I have 2 more questions for you, for our listeners.
Yeah.
Okay. So
can we just take one more break?
Do we really have to?
One more break.
Do we really have to?
Yeah, brother. We do.
Okay.
We have to hear from our sponsor.
All right. Let's go hear from our sponsors. All right, off the cuff, folks. We are back with Big Jefe and Ulika and our special guest, Bodine Sanders. And we are talking about his experiences in life regarding race and race inclusion, as well as his book, Race Against Race. So, Bodine, my next question to you is this. I once saw an interview many, many years ago. Many years ago, with Oprah Winfrey and Will Smith. And so she asked the same question that I asked you. And one of the things that Will Smith, the first and only thing really that Will Smith said in giving advice to any young person trying to follow in his footsteps was to change his friendships. Then he made the comment, which I've heard many, many times by my father, but, you know, at the time I was young and I thought my dad was just a dummy. And, you know, as I got older, he seemed to, you know, be a very wise man. But my question to you is this. How important, in your view, is it regarding friendships, the friendships that you keep? And I'm going to make the statement of what my dad used to say that, you know, amazingly enough, Will Smith also repeated. And I thought that they had been talking with each other, you know, and that was just done for me. But the statement was, "Tell me who 5 of your friends are, and I'll tell you who you are."
Wow. Yeah.
How do you feel about the influence of friendships and the mentalities of those friends regarding your ability to get out there and have success at anything that you do?
No, that is an absolute great question. For me, part of that question is based on where you are at that moment. And what I mean by that is when I was blessed enough with the help of my godmother, my sister, and a few friends of my sister to get me in college at Cheyney University, I left the day after I found out that I was going to college. So I kind of vanished, right? I write about that in the book. So the guys that I was friends with, which I didn't have a boatload of, right? When I graduated high school, my best friend, he and I started to drift apart because he unfortunately started hanging with the wrong crowd. Right. So there was distance started, to creep in between us. I was still focused on doing whatever I could to get to college, and he wasn't going to college. So his interest drifted elsewhere. One guy that was a teammate was going to college because he was already accepted and going to Cheyney. Okay. Right. So I knew where he was headed. And so once I left Jacksonville, Florida to come to Pennsylvania, another buddy from the football team was still home. And so I had a handful, literally just one hand, 4 or 5 guys that I hung with during my high school years. And then once I got to college, some were already out of Jacksonville, headed to college. And so it wasn't where I was back home hanging with guys and all those guys were going in the wrong direction, which meant that my life would get caught up in that. Right. So for me, it was different. Once I got to college and then I came back home for the summer, I knew based on the rumors and conversations in the neighborhood what guys were doing. So I grew up in a Southern Baptist church, my grandmother's Southern Baptist church. She was one of the head ushers. So I had a foundation of good and bad, good and evil. Right. Right. So I knew, and then I had good teachers that I listened to, right? Those teachers who would say, if you hang with smart people, the chances are it's going to rub off on you. Just like the opposite of that is if you hang with bad people, you're going to end up getting in trouble, right? There's two sides to every cliche or metaphor or analogy, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
So I knew based on my mom not going to college, right? And her
life story,
drive and focus for her daughters to get educated, right? Meaning my second oldest sister, who I said earlier, was already at Bethune-Cookman by the time I was a senior in high school. I could see how being a college student helped you mature, helped you enhance your character, your personality, all those things. So I wanted to be on the right side of the story versus the wrong side of the story. Right?
Yeah.
I write about how back in the 80s, that's when neighborhood drive-by shootings became began to become a phenomenon, right? Seeing 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock news of a drive-by shooting. And then you see that mother on TV crying, right? Heartbroken because her son, who probably 9 times out of 10 was a good athlete or was in the band or was doing something good, maybe not doing something good, but got caught up in a drive-by shooting. I did not want my mom to go through that.
Right.
I didn't want my mom to be one of those mothers on TV crying her eyes out because her son was at the wrong place at the wrong time and hanging with the wrong crowd. So along with my sisters, mom, family members saying, don't get in trouble, hang with the right people, hang with smart people. If you can't hang with smart people, then be by yourself. But again, when you mix in with my focus on wanting to get to college and play football, that kept me disciplined so I could stay in my correct lane.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. So that's what kept me going. And so when I would return home from Villanova, once I transferred, there were still only 1 or 2 guys I'd hang with. And if they were doing something wrong, I cut it off. It was an easy decision. It was easy because I had something to look forward to. I wanted to go back to college after that 2-week break.
That's another great message, man. It really is.
Yeah. After that 2-week break or Christmas break or whatever break it was, summer break, I wanted to go back to college. Right. So I made sure I put myself in a position, like if my one buddy, Jason Pearson, if he came over to pick me up to go to a party on the beach, my mom would sit there and say, Jason, you make sure you bring that kid right there. You bring him home the same way you pick him up.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And he would look at my mom and say, yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. So she put the onus on the person picking me up. Right. Oh, no. She knew what she had said to me. She didn't have to say it. She would say it to my buddy picking me up. You make sure you bring him home the same way you got him, or you're going to have to deal with me. And Jason would be like, yes, ma'am. So he made sure that I was doing the right thing.
Nice. Once
we walked out of my mom's house to go to the beach to hang out for a beach party or to a club.
Yes. And that's, like I said, that's a great message for all the young people too to hear. I'm gonna try and distribute this episode to the world, man, because it's been so great. And I wanna before we end it though,
I did say 2, didn't I? I did say 2.
Come on, man.
Yes, I'm biting my tongue. I
said
now.
2. You said right after these messages. We have to hear our sponsors, didn't we? Isn't that what he said, Bodine?
Yes, sir. I'll be nice.
All right.
I'll be nice.
Well,
ahead,
before you get started, I'll say this. I'll be more than happy to come back.
Oh man,
and do another episode.
That would be awesome.
For you guys, when the time is right. So you let me know. You have it goes both ways.
I'm going to give you this warning. Right? After the fact, you now committed yourself. You're in trouble. But here's the thing. In season 1, I don't recall exactly which episode. I want to say episode 3, maybe 4, maybe 5 or 6. One of the topics that we discussed was the role religion plays in raising a child.
Yep, I remember that. That was I think that was the 2nd episode.
Was it the 2nd? I thought it was the 3rd.
I think so.
Either way, it was a very good episode. I had a lot to say in that episode. I think we have to cut it up into like 3 different sections. It was like season 1, episode 3, A, B, C, D. It was rather long. But so I'd like to hear. I'd like our audience to hear from you, Bodine. What your thoughts are on religion and raising a child. The concept of it takes a village to raise a child. And the role that religion has played in your life and your successes.
Well, absolutely.
And feel free to keep it short.
Okay. Well, I'll say
Because
this.
Ulika tends to,
I'll say this,
bro. I love you, man.
But for the folks who are listening, if you do me a favor, I would appreciate it if you go to my website, Bo-Dean, that's DEAN, Sanders, SANDERS.com. Go to my website and you click on the book page link, and you can find any of your online retailers to pick up my book. I talk about, in my book, it's 7 chapters, 42 topics. I talk about everything. And so I talk about religion. I talk about stereotypes. I talk about dating in your race, outside your race. I talk about, teamwork. I talk about being homeless. I talk about all those things, doing your schoolwork, focusing on your academics. I talk about everything. So there's enough in it for everybody. But when it comes to religion, oh, absolutely. Remember, I said it. I grew up in a Southern Baptist church. I grew up every Sunday, a school bus would show up in front of my mom's house, pick us up, take us back to my grandmother's church. We go start with Sunday school. We would have breakfast either before or after. We'd have a break, and then we would go to church. So I grew up in that environment where we were taught, love thy neighbor as thyself, or the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, all those things. So when you have that foundation, right? When you have that foundation, even if you stray from that foundation, you still have it to fall back on and recall and pull back in your memory as you are growing and maturing and making mistakes, because we're all going to make mistakes. Mm-hmm. But if you have a solid foundation to fall back on when you make mistakes, then you can correct yourself in a proper manner. Right. And it does take a village, because I can remember if we were in church and my grandmother stepped out of the church area and went, to the ladies' room, or she went to the back office because she had to do something as one of the head ushers, we could have done one of two things. We, as her grandkids, could have started acting up because we saw an opportunity to act up, or we could have stayed in place and continued to do the right thing. Why did we continue to do the right thing? Because we know some of the other ushers would have said, Jesse, while you were gone, your grandkids started acting a fool. They started getting wrong. I mean, come on. So that's part of the process of it takes a village. If we would have walked out of church and walked to my dad's mom's house, which was down the street from the church. The church we attended was my mom's mother's church. My dad's mother, my other grandmother, she lived down the street from that church. So sometimes we would go from the church to my other grandmother's house down the street. And if we would have acted a fool from that church to my grandmother's house, somebody would have saw it as they were driving by, and word would have got back to my grandmother that they were acting a fool. So yes, it takes a village to keep kids in line, because we're kids. Well, at that point, we were kids. Kids are going to be kids, but if they're guided in the right way, if they have the right people giving them the right information, teaching them, guiding them, being their mentors, yes, it can play a very important role as they get older. What was great about transferring to Villanova was learning the Catholic religion. Now, do I remember all of it? No, but I had to take Catholic courses, religion courses, for the first 2 years. You had to take at least one religion course per semester. So I was learning about different religions and what they were taught. Some of it was foreign, but some of it was the same.
Yeah.
So there I learned that there are commonalities in religion. Right. So I was learning so much that helped me along the way.
Very good.
Ulika and I are both were both raised Catholic.
Yeah, but if you listen to that episode, we talked about that where we touched base. I went through this phase of being an atheist, believing more in science and myself and how things take place. Now, again, I was young and I was stupid. But as now I have become a parent myself and I have 6 children, and I go through life and I see some of the crazy, inexplicable actions of people in general. And I'll tell you that those foundations, just like you said, Bodine, those foundations, even if you stray away from them, you will always fall back on them because it does give you that foundation of right and wrong, does assist you in having a successful life, or at least, at the very least, being a very decent person in society.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Bro, that's a great point. Can I get to my game now? May I?
Go ahead, man. Go ahead. Hurry up.
All right. We're going to have a little fun real quick before it's all over. Okay. So this game is called This or That. TOT for short. I just made that up, but TOT.
TOT
anyway,
for short. Okay. Go ahead.
Here we go. Let's play some TOT.
Okay.
Although that could be misconstrued for another word, but I'm not going to elaborate on that. Okay. So
go on.
So, Bo?
Yes, sir.
All right. Caramel or caramel? How do you pronounce that?
Wow.
I know growing up in the South, it might have been different. I don't know. But
oh, man. I probably started out saying caramel.
Okay.
And at some point switched to caramel.
Okay.
But I would say the one that sticks out is caramel.
Okay. And my kids would love you for it. They have this thing where they're like, Dad, it's not caramel, it's caramel. And I say, well, Ulika and I say caramel, so take that. But
let me tell you that
but they're gonna love you, buddy.
That is an ongoing discussion, and
yeah, I bring it up all the time. I mean,
and how about this one, Bodine? Is it buffet or buffet?
Oh, it's definitely buffet.
See, I always say buffet. Bro. Nobody ever gets the buffet.
Yeah, you're the only one that says buffet. Man, since high school, you've been saying buffet. I'm like, no, it's not. Look at Warren Buffett. I mean, his name is Buffett. He'd be mad if you call him buffet, I think. I mean, it's like buble or boobly.
I mean, I'm just saying, I say buffet. I mean, it's the buffet,
Buffet.
You don't say,
that's kind of a little uppity.
You don't say buffet. It's a buffet,
Let's go to the buffet.
All right, what's your next?
Oh, man. That's an interesting one, though. I would like to see how many other people say buffet.
Oh, I'm sure we're going to get comments written about my buffet.
All right, so do you like cake or pie?
Oh, man. Oh, I grew up on cake at my grandmother's house.
Okay.
All types of cakes. My grandmother, I was lucky, guys. My grandmother had 5 pecan trees. Some would say pecan. Some would say pecan.
There you go. Pecan or pecan.
Right? She had 5 pecan trees, a grapefruit tree, a orange tree, and blackberry tree that we ended up cutting down because, you can imagine 20 grandkids walking in the house with blackberries on the bottom of their shoes. But my grandmother, part of our Sunday routine, and I write about this in the book, part of our Sunday routine after church during football season, we would go back to my grandmother's house. And if, once the pecans started falling off the tree into her yard, we had to pick them up, clean them off, put them in a brown bag, and she would donate half to the church, and the other half she would use to make pecan cake. Oh my God!
Wow. I never heard of pecan cake.
Pecan pie. You make a cake. You make a definitely pecan pie too, but you can put the pecans on top of the cake, but definitely she made pecan pie too. But she made more cake. She made more cakes than she made pies.
Okay.
Yeah, but I would say for me, I'm a cake person first.
Okay.
I do like pies, but I'm more of a cake person, to answer your question.
How about you, bro?
No, I'm a cake guy.
I really knew what you were.
I'm a cake guy. I'm a cake guy, man. A cake guy, I love pastries as well, so
Yeah, so pretty much both. But more cake.
Yeah, my wife, whenever she makes a cake, man, she tries to hide it from me, She says,
well, we went over your eating last episode, I believe, and you don't believe you eat so much. Well, you don't look like you eat, so I look like I eat a lot. Okay. So how about this? Mobile games or console games? Now, I play a lot of mobile games, so I'm going to say mobile games are off the bat, but there's a lot of people that play console games. So, PS5, Xbox.
Well, I'll tell you this. This is you asked the wrong guy, because you're
still on Donkey Kong.
I'm the first.
The little flip up thing, the little orange one. That's a Donkey Kong.
Atari.
Not even Atari, bro. It was in the 80s. That's what we had. We had this little orange thing that looked like a cell phone today, right? But it was ahead of its time in terms of design, right? It was a flip thing, and you had two mono screens, and you had to get, you had to jump over the barrels that Donkey Kong, which was a gorilla that stood at the very top, kept throwing down at you, and you had to make it all the way.
Well,
I remember that game.
And ULIKA is almost right. I don't play video games at all.
Okay.
At all.
Okay.
Like I grew up, my mom bought us I guess it was the Atari, where you had the two turn knobs where you could play tennis back and forth.
Oh yeah, I remember those days.
Right? And we were young, like we were probably 10 or under in age. I did not and was not allowed. Here's another story. I was not allowed to go to the corner store and put that dime or quarter in the machine to play Pac-Man. Because if you were hanging out on the corner, chances are you're going to find trouble. So all my friends, right, all of my buddies, not all, but, let's say a good number of teammates or classmates, as we're walking home after school or after practice, they stop at the corner, go in and play that game if they didn't have a similar version of it at home. I kept walking. Wow. And so I didn't play. I didn't play Pac-Man until I got to college. And the reason I played it in college
because the village wasn't there to tell your grandparents. That's what it was, wasn't it?
That's part of the answer. The other part of the answer is the basketball team, because you guys know Villanova basketball is big time, right?
Yeah, big time. Yep.
The basketball team had the video games in their locker room.
Whoa.
So I could play Pac-Man for free in the basketball locker room. The football team did not have video games in our locker room. We couldn't afford it, right? The basketball team had the video games in their locker room. So if I ever had a chance to walk to the locker room with one of the basketball players, I would stop and play the game so I could make up for the time that I didn't play it as a kid.
So in essence, you played it in college primarily because the village wasn't there to snitch on you. And
there you go.
You were frugal. You didn't think that you needed to pay for it.
There you go. I'll fall on the sword for that one. Absolutely.
Very good. Very good. I'll tell you guys a story about my son. I recently opened him up a bank account with USAA. And if you're not familiar with USAA, it's the military bank, credit union bank, or so forth. And, so they give some very nice tools. So I gave him, the ATM card, allowed him, I clicked off there on the app to allow him to be able to use the app, both mobile and online, and allowed him also to be able to control his money, put it in savings, put it in checking, and so on and so forth. So the very first day that he decided to use his card, this is money that he earned working with me. And he turns to me. It's actually pretty funny because he turned to me a few days after working with me. He said, "Dad, I don't want to go with you. This is like slave work, what you're doing, climbing up on roofs and putting up dishes, And I use that as a teachable moment, that if you don't want to do this type of work for the rest of your life, then you have to focus on your schools, your studies." And I think that actually did kind of help him to open up his eyes in terms of his education, although he kind of goes and comes. But nonetheless, the point I was going to make about his card is he went to go use that card for the very first time. He invited my wife and myself to buying us a cup of coffee. Now, my wife is very frugal, okay? I mean, she's like beyond frugal. It's annoyingly frugal. And so, we go to the gas station. It's kind of like our routine. We get coffee cups. We get our coffee, But they have a program where, the refill on a coffee cup, if you have the same cup, is 67 cents. So, we have a whole bunch of coffee cups that are saved. So we went to the store, myself, my wife, and my son. And we brought our coffee cups so that he wouldn't spend so much money, right? 67 cents. Anyway, he gets back home. He's having a heart attack. I mean, he's just having a fit. He said, "Dad, how much does your coffee cost, man? I spent like $20." So we turned to him and said, "We brought our own cups, son. You only paid 67 cents for our coffees." "What? Are you saying that chips cost $20? I was like, "You see my point?" That he goes, and 2 hours later he comes back. He says, "Dad, I want to apologize to you for all these times that I keep asking and asking. I did not realize how much money you're spending on nothing." I was like, oh. And I looked up at the sky and I put my hands together. I said, thank you. So,
That's a good
I'll
one.
tell you, he went a little ballistic at first, because he used to ask me all the time, "Hey, Dad, can I get $10 to get a new skin in my video game?" I'm like, "What the hell do you mean?"
Oh, Lord. Yes, I'm going through that.
And it's
I'm going through that.
He just didn't get it. And he always thought that, I was being hard and not wanting to give. Well, he went on a skins frenzy. Yes, thank you. Frenzy. And then he comes back to me. He says, "Dad, I spent all my money. I don't know how." "Well, look at your app, son." Microsoft.
It'll show you all the skins.
Looks like you're buying the skins that I refused to buy for you. Damn it. And he just walked away, So teachable moments, and I'm very happy with
that. Money don't grow. That money don't grow on trees like the pecan.
There you go. There you go. Now, let me ask you a question. Is this the son that's the soccer player?
The very one.
Well, if you don't mind, I like to offer just a little bit of advice. You could take it if you want.
Mm-hmm.
If I was also having a conversation with your son who loves soccer, who's doing well at soccer, and you're trying to encourage him to focus also on his academics. Another way of doing that, besides just saying, what if you get hurt? You need to have something to fall back on, which is what the terminology used back, when I was playing.
Mm-hmm.
I would also add that if he loves soccer that much, not only should he focus on his academics, but focus on the academics for soccer. Meaning, if you get hurt or you don't make it to the pros, you love soccer so much, you can continue working in the soccer industry because it's a big business. It's probably the biggest sports industry on the planet because more countries play soccer than they do American football, right? So he could find a job in the soccer industry. He could be in marketing. He could be in sales. He can be in development. He could be in advertising. There's so many job opportunities and titles and departments that, soccer is a big business. It has to function, right? It's not just the players. It's not just the players get on the field and play, and then at the end of the game, someone wins and someone loses. There is negotiating contracts for the jerseys. There's all kinds of stuff. There's the equipment. There is the music industry that comes along with being in the soccer industry. There's tons of jobs that he could work in and enjoy because he loves soccer as a whole.
Exactly.
So preparing himself for the soccer industry, not just being the player, is also a great way.
That is something I didn't think of in terms of making the connection. And perhaps maybe I'm going to, just after our show, I am going to shoot off a couple of text messages to his teachers. And yes, I do have their private numbers, and we are in contact all the time. And he knows he can't get away with anything with me. But yes,
there you go.
I am going to do that. I'm going to suggest that they start to curtail their conversations with him regarding the soccer industry as a whole, not just being the player.
Yep.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
That's a good point.
As a matter of fact, I'd like to ask you this. Do you ever do events with youth where you give them some advice, whether they take it or not?
Again, I'm looking to, once this pandemic is over, meaning we've got it under control, it's never going to be over, right? We get flu shots every year. But once this pandemic is under control, things will start to open up again, where I don't have to do virtual or remote, conversations. I look forward to getting out and doing speaking engagements in person, right? And that's part of what I like to do. Again, as I said earlier, having those conversations with student athletes or even students. Again, my message is for everybody, corporate, students, student athletes. And so not even 3 weeks ago, a good friend of mine asked me to talk to a 10th grade class, not the entire student body, but just the 10th grade class for one teacher. And it was a great experience. The kids were so cute and awesome and young, and their questions were awesome. And you could see and hear the dreaming, the goals, the image of what they want to be and what they want to try to achieve in their questions, right? They were curious. They wanted more information, not just from their teacher, but for someone outside of that teacher role model. And so, yeah, I'm happy to do that, and I look forward to doing it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Appreciate that. I would love to get him together to sit down with you and talk a little bit, just shoot the breeze, and from one athlete that made it out there in college to one athlete that's hoping to get there.
I'd be happy to do that. Absolutely, we could talk about that offline. Absolutely,
sure.
We could set that up.
Wonderful, I appreciate that.
I'm gonna do one more, and then I'm gonna wrap this up. Okay. You ready, Bo?
I'm ready.
The Off the Cuff with Big Jefe and ULIKA podcast, or the Joe Rogan Experience? And be careful how you answer this, sir.
Well, I'm not a celebrity. I'm not a superstar. I'm not familiar with Joe Rogan. I mean, I may have seen.
Oh, that's a great answer.
I may have seen his commercial or heard his commercial, but I'm not like I don't watch it or listen to it. So without a doubt, no doubt, it's off the cuff, right? No doubt, it's off the cuff.
Smart answer to threaten you.
Love that answer. Okay, so thank you so much, man, for coming on our show. You can come back anytime, and I know you mentioned we can just extend the invite, and I will do that for sure.
I already warned him.
It's a pleasure and an
the warning
honor.
after the fact. That's he's in trouble now.
Yeah, I forgot to warn you about ULIKA, man.
Hey, listen. It's all good. I'm glad we were able to have this open and honest conversation, genuine conversation, raw conversation.
We need more of this around the world.
And that's part of the process. You don't go from wanting to be a soccer player to winning the game at the end when the clock strikes zero. There is the process in between.
Right.
Practice, discipline, working out, studying your playbook. That's part of the academics, right? All of that is part of the process. And in order to,
and that applies to life as well.
Sports is a microcosm of life. Sports is the fabric, right? As athletes stepping outside of the athletic space, right? Like Muhammad Ali did, like Jackie Robinson did, like other athletes have done, from soccer to tennis, Arthur Ashe, Pele. I mean, stepping outside of athletics is part of the fabric of what athletes have done over the years, right?
Roberto
Clemente. Thank you. Right.
Yep.
So it's part of the fabric. And in order to keep that fabric strong, we need to have, as athletes, parents of athletes, friends of athletes, allies of athletes, the media, we need everybody to be a part of the conversation to make that fabric stronger. Because if that fabric is stronger for the athletes and all those in that space, then guess what? The fabric and the flag of the United States is strong.
Right.
Boom.
That's right.
It's just that simple.
That's right.
I just want to speak to everybody out there. Do yourself a favor and get this man's book. Can they get it at mall bookstores? Am I right about that? I know they can get the ebook on their Kindle from Amazon.
Yeah, they can get the ebook from Amazon, which is the Kindle product. They can get it from Barnes and Noble, which is the Nook product. They can pick it up from any of their online retailers. All they have to do is just go online, Google it. I mean, I've seen Target, Walmart, independent bookstores in their neighborhood. If they like to support independent bookstores, they call their independent bookstore and say, hey, I'd like to buy this book from your store. They'll order it and get it to you. So there's a number of ways to pick up my book. Again, you can go to my website and check out all of the online retailers.
Bo-DeanSanders.com.
Yep, Bo-or-DeanSanders.com. All the information is there. and they can pick up my book. And hey, I even have an email attached to my website. They can shoot me a question, and when I get time, I will definitely respond.
Awesome. And it's called Race Against Race: My Journey of Diversity and Inclusion Through Sports by Bodine Sanders. Thanks again, man. I appreciate it so much. We appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you guys. Thank you very, very, very much for giving me the opportunity.
Bodine, it's been a pleasure. And I've had lots and lots of fun talking with you. And I definitely hope that you come back on our show.
Will do. And Euclid, let's circle back and let's connect regarding that opportunity to speak with your son in a 2-on-1 scenario, and give him the space where he's comfortable to have that conversation.
Well, the space he's comfortable does not include me. Dad, walk on the other side of the street. Dad, just don't talk to anybody, Dad, please. And
you know what? At least you are in tuned to what matters to him, and that's a great thing. So you're right. If that means if that's a one-on-one conversation and you set it up or he set it up, that's fine. That will go a long way versus you hovering over him while that conversation is happening. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. If you're comfortable with that, I'm good with that too.
I'm very comfortable with it. I'm very comfortable with it.
Awesome. That's a great note to end this on, man. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. See you at the gates if you make it in.
Have a great one. Thank you, Bodine.
Take care.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Bodine.